Okay, today we're going to be diagnosing engine starting problems, specifically a no start on a Dodge Durango, on a 2000 Dodge Durango with a 5.9 liter V8 engine. And for those of you who watched my previous video on engine starting problems, you may recognize we worked on this car previously, and we diagnosed that we had a bad battery, and that was fixed and had no problems for several months. And now we have a no starting problem, and it started actually the truck ended up stuck on the freeway, and the owner stated that the engine just quit and it had to be towed out of the freeway. So the first thing we want to do is we want to try to start it and hear what it sounds like. Okay, so as you heard the cranking, and we have pretty good cranking speed. Had no problem cranking. It simply did not fire, did not start. So now, those of you that are familiar with how the car engines operate, internal combustion engines, that would probably tell you, the cranking noise will probably tell you quite a bit of what's initially happening. We can rule out the battery, we can rule out the starter, we can rule out any possible bad connection problems with the battery and the starter. We don't even have to touch the battery or do any voltage testing or anything. We can, by the sound of the starter, we can tell that it's got a really good cranking speed, really fast. So the battery's got plenty of power, and obviously has a good connection. So now there's several things that may prevent the engine from starting, such as we want to test for a spark. First thing we want to do is test for a spark, see if we have a spark, and we'll do that next. Okay, now there are a lot of ways to test for a spark, and the easiest way on this car would be to test it right off of the distributor, and we'll start from there, and then we can go on and eliminate some other possible areas such as bad wires and things like that. But first we want to see if we have a spark at the distributor. So, and usually the easiest way to do that is to grab our we can disconnect one of these wires here. Let's take this one for example. And we'll connect a test light right to the alligator clip. Right on the metal connection sticking out of the distributor cap. And then what we need a good ground so we can so we can test the spark on. And usually a good ground would be like the exhaust manifold, or even on top of the right here on top of the intake manifold, and then we'll need to crank the engine to do that. Okay, and since I don't have an assistant here with me today to help with cranking the engine, I'm going to be using my Sun remote starter, and we're going to be tapping into the starter relay. And here's the starter relay box diagram, and the starter relay is this one right here, number 4, and this is a mirror image of the box, so it's kind of like right side left. So this 2 relays here will be this 2 here. So the starter relay would be number 4, and it's marked right there. Number 4 would be this top one right here. Okay, so it would be, if you put it like this, that's what it would be. Right, that one right there, right next to the connector. So we'll wiggle this one out, and we'll be using a couple of fuse taps. These are from we got these at Napa Auto Parts, and these are for the regular size fuses. So not the real small ones like these. So they have a connector right, just the same size as the relays. So that makes them nice and handy. This is a tap that you normally use like to when you're customizing, making a custom connection, and you put it next to a fuse, and you put the fuse on top of it, and you're able to tap into it, to that circuit, or for testing. So in this case, we're going to be using, and the 2. If you look at the diagram right here, the diagram on the fuse here, you look at the this 2 here would be the 2 connections that actually get the connection that actually gets these are the 2 energizing. The energizes the relay where the coil is. Middle one is not used, and then these 2 are the actual contacts for the starter. The 2 larger ones here. So you can see they're the same size. So they can. We'll use these 2 here. Set them like that. Now I know there are fancy equipment that actually plugs right into here, that looks sort of like a relay and plugs right into it. I am always trying to find ways of helping the do-it-yourselfer do it at a minimal cost, since some of us don't make a living working on cars. We need to do things that are cost effective. So this way we can actually crank the engine from here, and at a minimal cost. Now, for something like this, you need to know what you're doing. If you're not sure, it's better just to have an assistant crank the engine for you. It's simple enough. This is a convenience if you're working by yourself and you know how to connect to it. And maybe one of these days I'll do a more in-depth video of how to do connections and all that sort of good stuff. But for now, we'll concentrate at the task at hand. And now we're going to test if we have a spark, if we actually have an ignition spark. And okay, so we have our test light connected right here to the top of our distributor cap. So you can see that to the top of that connector, and you can choose any one of those. And then we'll get it close here to the metal on the manifold, and we'll look for a spark. And we have a regular 12-volt test light, and then I'll activate the starter with the remote starter, some remote starter, and then we'll see if we have a spark. And we'll need to turn the engine on. Or I should say, we'll turn the key on. Okay, so we have our key on. I don't know if you can see that. And we do have a spark. It seems a little weak. We have a spark, so let's see if we can see that. So we have a very weak spark. I don't think the camera even picked that up. That's a problem right there that we need to probably focus on. And now there's another test I would like to perform before we continue. Is we'd like to perform a fuel pump test. I'd like to see what the pressure on to the fuel rail. And the nice folks at Chrysler did provide us with a Schrader valve right here, which is kind of nice for testing the fuel pump and the fuel pressure. So some systems don't have it, so we do have to somehow tie into the fuel rail in another way, usually by disconnecting something and connecting an adapter. But this one has a nice Schrader valve that we'll be able to connect right here. Okay, so for the next test, we're going to be using a fuel pressure tester from the good folks over at AutoZone, and this is on the Loaner tool program. It's an OEM fuel pressure test kit, and it consists of a few items: fuel pump tester, a multimeter to test for make different do different test procedures, and such as fuel pump voltage and ground and that sort of thing. And right now we're going to be using the actual pressure, fuel pressure gauge, and it comes with a Schrader valve adapter, which nicely just screws right into the Schrader valve connector, and what we do is we take off just remove the shredder valve cap and connect the hose. And this has a relief valve as well, right here, that you want to connect, and it's connected to a hose, and you want to connect this hose to a suitable container to catch any fuel that when you release the pressure here. So, and we usually release the pressure once we are done, before disconnecting the shredder from the shredder valve here. And of course, as always, we have our safety glasses on. Okay, so next we're going to turn on the ignition and crank our engine just to see what pressure we get from the fuel pump. And we connected the distributor wire that we removed for the spark test. We reconnected it. So now we are ready, and we want to make sure we don't have any sparks or anything when we're working on the fuel system. And as always, we have our safety glasses on, and we're ready to crank our engine. So we'll hit our switch and watch our gauge. And we get nothing. So we're ready to hit our switch and watch our gauge. So I don't know if you could see that. That registered 50 pounds per square inch, and it held it there while cranking, so that is good. Now, it should have held that pressure actually for, it should be at least, most cars, at least half an hour. So that's not a good sign, but so that would be a reason for long cranking, which actually the owner stated that it would, especially in the morning, there would be a kind of like a long cranking to get it started. And even doing it twice, and that would be a reason for that. Now, the 50 pounds would be sufficient to get it started. Once it pumped, so I don't know if you could see that, but the actual pressure went up to 60 and then came down to 50. It reached 60 and it settle down to 50. So that is sufficient to start the car. So that is not the problem that we're facing here. I mean, that would be, it seems like it has a probably a weak pressure regulator, and which this car, the pressure regulator is on top of the pump. This is actually a return system, but it's on top of the pump, of the fuel pump, which is located on top of the fuel pump. It's in the gas tank, and the pressure regulator is right on top of the pump. So that would be something to look into in the future, but it's not. It hasn't fully failed yet. But this is something that this is not the reason why of the no start that we're facing right now. So now we have to continue with the diagnosis to find out what the problem is. Okay, so now once we're done with the test, we want to disconnect our shredder valve. But before we do that, we want to release any residual pressure in the system, and we use the button here. to do that. And of course, this system it's pretty much down to zero. It's not holding pressure. And reason, like I mentioned earlier, that's the reason for our long cranking time. So, but it does reach operating pressure, which is usually around for this car is somewhere in the, I believe it's 45 to 55. So it's this car would start normally. So there is some other underlying problem in it does not seem to be fuel system related. So we'll continue to diagnose what the problem is. We know already that starter is good, battery is good, connections are good. So and of course when you do this, you want to have a suitable container to catch any fuel that will come out through this hose here. And once we take that valve off or that connector off, we want to cap our actuator valve to make sure it stays clean. Okay, so now we know that we have a spark. Although it is a weak spark, but we do have a spark. So what does that tell us? That tells us that we can eliminate a few things. For example, the crankshaft position sensor, we can eliminate that, otherwise we will not have a spark at all, because we won't have a signal coming from the PCM. We can also eliminate the camshaft position sensor because that it's actually takes effect once the engine starts, having to do with fuel injection and spark, but usually that's after the engine starts. So we can pretty much eliminate those two things. So we don't really need to go into the distributor cap, since we know we have the spark. Now we could check the distributor cap. In fact, we're going to do that. We're going to might as well do a tune-up and replace the distributor cap and rotor. And but that is not. Pretty sure that's not the problem here. I won't say 100% certainty. As they say, there's no 100% other than death and taxes. But I can say with close to 100% certainty, it's not there. Now, we want to do one more test to eliminate the actual, since we tested it at the distributor when we tested for spark, we want to eliminate the center high tension wire that comes from the coil to the center of the distributor. We want to eliminate that we could have a weak wire there. Although we were getting a constant spark, it was real weak, so we want to test that as well. So the way we do that, we eliminate that cable by testing for spark right at the coil, right at the high tension terminal of the coil, the secondary terminal. So we'll do that next. Okay, so now, as we normally do in diagnostic work, we want to use the process of elimination and continue to eliminate the possible problem areas. So now we want to make sure we have isolate the problem, and we want to eliminate the possibility of a bad high tension wire, which is the coil wire that goes from the coil to the center of the distributor. And what we do, we'll disconnect it from the coil and expose the coil terminal. Now we want to use our trusty test light, our 12-volt test light, and we want to ground it, get a good ground on the engine, and test it to our positive terminal of the battery to make sure it's working. and then we'll need to crank the engine, have an assistant crank the engine, and see if we get a spark. So we'll do that. We'll use our Sun starter, remote starter. We'll get it close to the terminal, and we see that we have a. You might see that, so we have a spark, but it's a very weak spark. So then, pretty much the same as what we had at the distributor. So that tells me that it's not the wire. If it was a bad wire, we would have a good, nice, strong spark here at the coil. So that pretty much eliminates. It's not the crankshaft sensor, and the CPM is fine. Also, it's also working correctly. Otherwise, we would not get a signal here. We would not get a. The CPM is sending the signal to the coil to fire. So then, what that leaves, obviously, is the coil, that we have a bad coil. Now we could also continue and check for coil voltage at the coil, at the primary, and that's almost, for me, at this point, it's almost redundant, because I can pretty much with almost 100% certainty can tell you that this is a bad coil. Otherwise, if we had no spark at all, then we would want to do some more tests. But once we see that we do have a spark, it means that the rest of the system is working. It's just that the spark is very weak, not enough to fire the engine, not enough to make the combustion in the engine, to fire it up. So we pretty much just need to replace the coil. Now, if you did want to do a voltage test, I'll show you how to do that. Okay, now to do our voltage test, we need to remove the connector, the primary winding connector, which is this one here. And for the voltage test, we'll pull it out, and it's this one here. And what you do to remove this, you need to press on here. You usually push it to relieve the pressure on the clip, and then press here, and kind of press hard, and then pull it down, and place it right here. So if I can get you a shot of this, we'll need our multimeter. Turn a multimeter, and we'll set it on the 20-volt scale. So I can get you to see that. Bunch of wires and things in the way here. So we'll need to actually crank the engine to do this. So we'll want to get your negative terminal, get it on a good ground on the engine, and test it with the battery to make sure that get the red terminal of the multimeter on the battery. Make sure you're getting a good ground and you got a good 12 volts. And then you'll be touching on the left terminal with the clip on top. You'll be touching, you don't want to spread the terminals, you just want to touch them right here. and we'll just touch them, and we'll have someone, you want to have an assistant crank the engine for you. And I'll have my remote starter here, and because you won't get a voltage unless you crank the engine. So you want to touch the one on the left, make sure you're touching it. There, you can see you got a voltage there. While cranking, you may get a little less than the 12 volts, usually between 10 and 12 volts. There you are. So that confirms that we have voltage at the coil. So the PCM, it's sending the signal. So that pretty much eliminates the crankshaft sensor, eliminates pretty much everything else. And this is your signal. The one on the right is your signal. It's an on and off signal to the coil to make it fire. And with the meter, you'll only see very on the hundredths of a volt. So that's your signal wire, and if you put an LED light on there, you'll be able to see it blink. So that, it's a confirmation that we have a bad coil. So we'll replace the coil, and that should be the end of our problems. Okay, so now we will remove the coil and just wiggle out the high tension distributor wire going to the center of the distributor. We'll use a 10 millimeter socket, and if you need to just not start turning, not in the back, you just use a 10 millimeter open end wrench or combination wrench to hold that nut. It usually doesn't, so. And if it turns, you can just hold it by hand. What I do, I leave that one there, and I'll loosen the bottom one. And leave that one last to is to hold it in place until I'm ready to remove it. And that nut, it's kind of hard to get a hold on it, so it's you can use a magnet if you think you're going to lose it and drop it. I've used a small telescoping magnet to get that nut. And the telescoping magnet will let you hold on to it without losing it. And then the connector, just push on it, and then push on the connector, and then pull. Like so. We'll get our new coil on it. Click in the connector. It's usually easier to do it disconnect it once you have it removed. click it in till it clicks. You get the bottom bolt. It's easy to get the bottom bolt and nut in place first. And then we'll get out the top bolt. Then we'll tighten our bolts. And if you need to, you can use again a combination or open end wrench on that back on that back nut. And I'm using the Titan Tools Hexo Drive set. It's pretty small and the ratchet has short clicks. It's really nice to use on confined areas. Get those tight, and we'll reconnect our high tension lead. And there we are. Okay, and now that we have our ignition coil in place and we connected our primary and secondary, comes the moment of truth. We are going to find out if the engine is going to start, if our logic is correct, or if I'm full of it. So let's find out. We'll start the engine. Okay, here we are. We started on the first try. Okay, so as you can see, it started on the first try, and you might have heard that I clicked the ignition on and off 4 times, and the reason I did that before cranking the engine, the reason I did that is, if you remember earlier in the video, we when we did the fuel pressure test, we diagnosed the fuel pump, or possibly the fuel pressure regulator, to be weak, and the pressure it's not holding the pressure as it should. These systems require the fuel rail to remain under pressure, at least, usually most engines, at least half an hour, 30 minutes. I believe it's usually the common specs on it. So this engine loses the fuel pressure pretty quickly, right away. So I cycled the key several times to bring up the pressure in the fuel rail, because every time the systems to protect the pump, they have the relay actually cuts. There's a relay that cuts the power to the fuel pump if the engine is not running. So I cycled it 4 times, and as you can see, it started right away. So we also learned that indeed our logic was correct, that we eliminated the problem without replacing any other parts. We arrived at the obvious culprit, which was the ignition coil. And as you notice, we did that by using logical process of elimination to come up to the obvious problem. Now, or I should say, to the ultimate culprit in the problem that we're facing. So that we kind of use the old Murphy's Law of not to overlook the obvious, and then on the other side of that is also don't always go with the obvious. So that's why we need to use the process of elimination and eliminate all the possible problems until we get to the actual part that is failing, without replacing a whole bunch of parts. And when you do that, we're not becoming mechanics, good mechanics. We're actually just we're becoming parts replacers, and you can pretty much end up with a new car and you still have the problem. So having said that, I think that would be it for this video. Hopefully this video was helpful, and thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And as always, try to stay clean. Just try.